Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you. I hope you're in good health. I know I mentioned it in the Q&A, but just in passing, in case you didn't hear it, every now and again I get requests to do a live Q&A, and I've tried that in the past. It's appealing to me, but right now our subscriber count on this channel is, although it's healthy and growing, which is terrific, it's widespread all over the world in different time zones and so forth. So when I want to do a live during whatever time of the day I deem it convenient for me, it just gets very few. If people are asleep, people are at their jobs. It's hard to find a time, and it's impossible to find a time that's going to offer the largest amount of people. I think once our channel, our Sangha grows in the thousands, then I'll have more success in doing a live chat. Right now, it's just hearing myself talk. So I can do things personally with you through the email. So if you have questions about your practice or doubts or things you'd like to share, tlksylvain@gmail.com is my email. Please feel free to communicate with me. And when I am unable to keep up with those emails, I will rethink the live situation. But that's why it hasn't happened, other than something I tried with the New Year's Gongyo. Even then, it's impossible, again, because of the worldwide nature, international, if you will, of our Sangha, which is wonderful. I'm not complaining. It just makes it harder for us to all meet at once. Right now, anyway, our numbers just aren't that big yet. So, now, to the Go Show. Letter to Jakunichi-Bo. Jakunichi-Bo and his family took up Nichiren's doctrine of the Lotus Sutra many years, decade before this was written. This was written, it's thought, from Mount Minobu, as you know, where Nichiren retired and taught from. It's also thought that through Jakunichi-Bo, this letter was also intended to a woman in his area. So once again, we have one of those letters that's personal, but also a teaching with the purpose of passing on that teaching to other students, right? Okay, it starts, I deeply appreciate your sending a letter to this distant place. Remember, there's no mailboxes or anything, so sending a letter to Nichiren was a matter of either doing it personally with a retinue that would help you travel through the mountains and all the very rudimentary roads of the day, or to send a messenger with a retinue to get there. So it was no simple matter to send a letter. So Nichiren is showing appreciation for that. It is extremely rare to be born as a human being. We've talked about that on this channel quite a lot, that this samsaric identity that we have is extremely precious because it's our only opportunity to enliven and experience our Buddha mind. Okay? Not only are you endowed with human form, but you have had the rare fortune to encounter Buddhism. Moreover, out of the Buddha's many teachings, you have encountered the Daimoku, or the title of the Lotus Sutra, and become its votary. See, not only do we encounter the teachings of the Lotus Sutra, but by invoking its title, we enliven the entirety of Buddhist teachings, and we become bodhisattvas, votaries of the Lotus Sutra, right? Truly, you are a person who has offered alms to 100,000 million Buddhas in his past existences. And this is a flowery way of saying that you've made a commitment in your life to enliven your maximal potential. And this is what has brought you to the Lotus Sutra, where you can, in fact, with a simple method, invoke that very highest potential of your earthly mind, your Buddha mind of clarity, unattached, right? Nichiren is the supreme votary of the Lotus Sutra in Japan, and that's a reference to him being a manifestation, if you will, of the superior practice Bodhisattva spoken about in the Lotus Sutra. Shakyamuni predicted that in this latter age of greed, anger, and foolishness, that there would be someone who would be a preeminent Bodhisattva and votary of the Lotus Sutra and aid in spreading this teaching far and wide throughout Jambudvipa. Obviously, Nichiren takes this mantle very seriously, and in point of fact, he is our teacher, isn't he? Our example, if you will, of how to practice the Lotus Sutra. So he acknowledges that responsibility, and he goes on, in this land, only he has lived the 20-line verse of the encouraging devotion chapter. The 800,000 million Nayutas of Bodhisattvas pledged with this verse to propagate the Lotus Sutra, but not one of them fulfilled the pledge. Not then. Remember, in the Lotus Sutra, the Bodhisattvas of the earth rise from beneath the earth. That's future birth. That's you and I. And we couldn't fulfill that pledge then, but now is our time. So now we populate the planet, and one of the four leaders of the Bodhisattvas of the earth is Nichiren, right? The parents who gave life to this extraordinary person, Nichiren, are the most blessed or rewarded of all people in Japan. It is no doubt because of karmic forces that they became my parents, and I their child. So this, again, this is colloquial vernacular describing this, what we understand now with the help of science and cosmology and great minds, understand that these are the processes of energy manifesting into mass or matter. And through the Nidana, which Shakyamuni taught almost 3,000 years ago, we understand that those forces in a secular way coming from energy and manifesting as bodily, as physical. And because those energies are grouped and similar but all unique, they form the skandhas, if you remember studying the skandhas, the types of manifestation that we all are. The country we're born in, the color of our skin, the color of our eyes, so on and so forth. All those distinctions, great and small, arise from slight subtleties in the amalgams of energy from which we manifest. And when we manifest, we find a good fit, if you will, through a mother and father combined with our energy, make a third entity. That entity, in this case Nichiren, shares some of his chromosomal genealogical history with that of his mother and father. So there's a tight nidanic, I could say, relationship, right? Like all of us. We don't have our mother and father in us, but we have some of their of mother and father's genealogical or energetic traits, tendencies, and conditions inculcated into our own third. We're not simply a combination of those two. They come and combine with the entity that is us, and we're a good fit. That's why karmically we're very related, right? The same thing happens in relationships. When we commit to an intimate relationship with somebody, we start to intermingle our karmic realities. This is why relationships often start out with sparks and wonder and all sorts of excitement when we first match up. But then as we go on, the little differences in us start to explode, and we go through a period in relationships that is difficult, and we have to negotiate. And that's a brilliant part of a relationship that we have to commit ourselves to, because that cleanses our karma. And with the help of a mandala and this practice and chanting, we can come through those difficulties with great reward and more solid integration and solid relationships. That's just the nature of samsara versus our highest potential, right? We put ourselves in situations, in relationships, whether they're intimate or and personal or so societal or at work. We're always going to be rubbing karma and finding unity and dissonance at the same time. The opportunity is there to become something more evolved, more enlightened, more awakened to what is this life. Or we can submit to our lower worlds, our lower potentials, and build resentment and go to war and all that sort of thing. Those would be lower worlds and negative, right? They don't serve our highest potential. They serve our samsaric animal potential, and we don't want to nurture that, because that always leads to a lot of suffering, right? Okay, so let's go on. If Nichiren is the envoy of the Lotus Sutra, and the thus come one Shakyamuni, then his parents must also share this relationship. So he's an envoy of the Lotus Sutra and Shakyamuni. And because they're karmically related, his parents are also going to share in that benefit, that reward, right? They are like King Wonderful Adornment and Lady Pure Virtue, with their sons Pure Storehouse and Pure Eye. Could the two Buddhas, Shakyamuni and Many Treasures, have been reborn as Nichiren's parents? Obviously, this is, again, the expedient means of saying, using the examples of the sutras, the expedient means, the teachings, and to understand what they embody in spirit, in samsaric and awakened entities, right? Or, if not, could his parents have been among the 800,000 million Nayutas of Bodhisattvas, or the 4 Bodhisattvas led by Bodhisattva superior practices? It is beyond comprehension, right? So right now he's paying homage to all the teachings of Buddhism. He's talking to a monk, a lay monk. So he knows that this lay monk is educated in the sutras and in the expedient means, and he knows all these stories that he's referencing, right? And he just wants to enliven this dialogue and demonstrate once again how Buddhism is just about how the mind works and our samsaric experience, and how to appreciate and to understand the meaning of the teachings as an earthly daily experience, not some mystical other, right? Names are important for all things. Well, certainly they are in samsara. That is why the great teacher Tendai placed, quote, name first among the 5 major principles, right? Nama-rupa, name and form. My giving myself the name Nichiren, or Sun Lotus, derives from my own awakening regarding the Buddha vehicle. So he's spelling it out here. I am acting as a bodhisattva, the embodiment, if you will, of the teachings of Shakyamuni, right? And I am distributing those teachings as Shakyamuni predicted must be done in this latter age, right? So he's performing that function. He's awakened and enlightened to that. This may sound as though I think I am wise, but there are specific reasons for what I say. In other words, it's not an idle boast that I know more about Buddhism than you do. He's taken the responsibility, the great charge of distributing this teaching of the Lotus Sutra far and wide, as Shakyamuni predicted would have to be done in this latter age. The sutra reads, quote, "As the light of the sun and moon can banish all obscurity and gloom, so this person, as he advances through the world, can wipe out the darkness of living beings," teaching every individual how to invoke their own Buddha mind, their own Buddha-ness, right? Clarity, liberation from suffering, quite literally. Consider carefully what this passage signifies. Quote, "This person, as he advances through the world," quote, "means that the first 500 years of the latter day of the law will witness the advent of Bodhisattva superior practices." Once again, as I've mentioned before, he identifies with this particular personage, this leader of Bodhisattvas, who will illuminate the darkness of ignorance and earthly desires with the light of the 5 characters of Myoho Renge Kyo. In accordance with this passage, Nichiren, as this Bodhisattva's envoy, do you see the duality there? Nichiren, the man, the earthly samsaric manifestation, becomes the envoy of this Bodhisattva. In other words, this personage, this representation of spreading the teachings of the Lotus Sutra far and wide, as encapsulated in Bodhisattva superior practices, which isn't an actual individual, but a conceptual individual. He takes that mantle and becomes the envoy, has urged the people of Japan to accept and uphold the Lotus Sutra. Certainly that's Nichiren, right? His unremitting efforts never slacken, even here on this mountain. Now he speaks in the third person, but he's speaking of himself, right? The sutra then goes on to say, quote, "After I have passed into extinction, one should accept and uphold this sutra. Such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. Therefore," quote, end quote, "therefore, those who become Nichiren's disciples and lay believers should realize the profound karmic relationship they share with him and spread the Lotus Sutra as he does." Well, he couldn't spell it out more than he does right here, right? We are all trying to emulate Nichiren, and he says that this is what we should be doing. Being known as a votary of the Lotus Sutra is a bitter yet unavoidable destiny. So there he's pointing out that in our samsaric identities, doing this work of spreading the Lotus Sutra, we will encounter resistance. And sometimes it will be very hard to proceed that way, but it is our life's mission. Fan Kuai, Chang Liang, Masakado, and Sumitomo never acted cowardly because they cared so deeply about their honor and abhorred disgrace. But disgrace in this life is nothing. Of far greater concern is the disgrace that appears in the next life, how you conduct yourself in the future. Proceed to the place of practice of the Lotus Sutra, bearing in mind the time when you must face the wardens of hell, and the garment-snatching demoness, and the garment-suspending demon will strip off your clothes on the bank of the river of the 3 crossings. The Lotus Sutra is the robe that will keep you from disgrace after this life. The sutra reads, quote, "It is like a robe to one who is naked," end quote. So all these life references are about the life of ignorance versus the life of awakening. It's like having a new life, reliving this life again. And you say this all the time colloquially in your different cultures, like it feels like that was a lifetime ago. But you know it was in this life. It's just that our life is continuously evolving and changing, and we influence that change, right? And when we begin to influence that change with Myoho Renge-kyo, the change is profound. It's like leaving this previous existence and entering into a new one. You know, all the language like the pure land of enlightenment. It's not that you've gone to a different place, it's that you perceive the place you're in completely differently. Do you see? Believe in the Gohonzon with all your heart, for it is the robe to protect you in the world after death. No wife would ever leave her husband unclothed, nor would any parents fail to feel pity for their child shivering in the cold. Shakyamuni Buddha and the Lotus Sutra are like one's wife and parents. You have helped me and thereby saved me from disgrace in this life. In return, I will protect you from disgrace in the next. What one has done for another yesterday will be done for oneself today. Blossoms turn into fruit and brides become mothers-in-law. Chant Namu Myoho Renge-kyo and be always diligent in your resolute mind. I cannot thank you enough for your frequent letters. Jakunichi-Bo, please convey all these teachings in detail to that believer. Thought to be this woman, this wife. So, there's a misunderstanding here that this is, see, this was originally printed through NST, and Nichiren Shoshu keeps wanting to pound the pavement that Nichiren was the original Buddha, which is poppycock. And so I gotta clean that up in the background here. But nowhere in this does Nichiren say that. So that's just their ego getting in the way of the teachings. It drives me crazy. Okay, so in this last paragraph, believe in the Gohonzon with all your heart. I want to make sure that you're clear on this point. That is not the Gohonzon. That is a perfect mirror of Gohonzon. Gohonzon is within your mind. It is your enlightened mind. It is your mind. You could even look at it as a transitional mind that takes you from your samsaric mind of attachment, desire, so on and so forth, to your Buddha mind, which is clear and liberated of all of that. That is like the Buddha wisdom, the Gohonzon. That transcends this samsaric world of form and attachment to a world of form but detachment. That mandala represents the totality of that teaching of the Dharma being not solely a teaching, but an experience of life. Put into words is a teaching, but the Dharma is bigger than that. The Dharma is the experience of what the teachings are trying to describe, but you can only experience Buddhahood. It fails to be described. Words fail to do that. But the Gohonzon is somewhere between this communicative effort and the actual realization of Buddhahood. And it exists within your mind. This is an effective mirror to focus on so we can take that earthly mind of samsara and direct it to this enlivening of our Buddha nature, the Gohonzon of earthly existence transcending to the unattached Buddha mind. Does that make sense? Try to place this Gohonzon in your own mind, your own mental experience. That mandala is a tool to invoke that Gohonzon, that transitory phase, into your Buddha. That makes sense? All right. So, interesting letter, and quite a task he's given this this lay priest to pass on all of this information to this woman. He can, of course, just read the letter to her, but he'll undoubtedly end up having to explain concepts and talk to her, as I'm fumbling through here with you. The next one is on persecutions befalling the sage. We've got a theme going here. So I look forward to having you participate in watching that. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon and all of those of you who've been able to send me donations, big and small. It's helping keep this channel going, and hopefully to build out the school here so I can start doing more with the local population and getting them involved. And with that, take care of your health, be kind to one another, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.